Good morning, Major Verna. Good morning, class. I'm Cadet 3rd Class Villanueva, and today I'll be giving my problem-solving briefing analyzing one of my favorite pieces of media and how it utilizes the OODA loop and the 8-step problem-solving method. In this brief, I'll be using the comedy It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, specifically the episode The Gang Solves the Gas Crisis, as my case study. While it is a comedy, I do believe it provides a clear example of the structured problem-solving process, and more importantly, how that process can fail when assumptions, biases, and ego override reason and logic. So, I'll start with a brief overview. We will go into a little background and context of the episode I chose, how it utilizes and breaks down the OODA loop and 8-step problem-solving process. And then finally, we'll finish off with a summary on why I think this episode works as a great example of this process, and more so, how it showcases failure when utilizing this process and how the gang utilizes it incorrectly. So, a little context about the show and the episode. The show, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, is about these 5 characters: Dennis, Mac, Dee, Charlie, and Frank, and their adventures and dealings that they get into running and working at a bar together. So, in the episode, the gang solves the gas crisis. Gas prices are rising, which puts a financial strain on the gang and their bar. However, the gang believes that this creates an opportunity to exploit and profit from the situation. So, rather than trying to figure out how they can keep their bar afloat, their objective quickly shifts from keeping the bar running to trying to profit off the gas crisis itself. And this decision kicks off the full problem-solving process itself. So, for step 1 of the problem-solving process, clarifying the problem. In this episode, the gang identifies that gas is expensive, and this is having an impact on the number of customers they're getting through. Less people are coming to their business, and as a result, their business is suffering and is at risk of failing. This step aligns with the observe phase of the OODA loop, in it that the gang recognizes their external problem. For step 2 of the 8-step method, breaking down the problem. So the gang attempts to break down their problem further. They acknowledge that there are increased costs for both their business but also customers, and they also acknowledge that in order to reach their goal of profiting off the gas crisis, they recognize that they have limited resources and a lack of business knowledge and expertise. However, while they identify these constraints, they don't actually account for them in their later decision-making process. So, for step 3 of the problem-solving process, setting improvement targets. At this point, they set their improvement target as pretty simple. Their goal is they want to make money by exploiting the gas crisis and becoming the middleman rather than gas stations making all the money. They want to make all the money by selling gas to customers. And this falls under the orient phase of the OODA loop process cycle, in it that they decide what success looks like, and that target for success is driven by greed, profit, rather than feasibility in achieving their goal. For step 4, root cause analysis. So this is where we really get to break down the problem. So the gang assumes that there is a gas supply shortage, and they also assume that people will buy gas from anyone as a result of this. They completely ignore any legal, safety, or storage constraints, and their root cause analysis for what's stopping them from profiting is almost entirely based on assumptions that, hey, we're smart, we can do this, rather than hard data and facts. So, for step 5, developing countermeasures. So the gang has identified their problem, there's a gas crisis. They have oriented and said, okay, there's a gas crisis, we want to profit from it. Here's the issues that might stop us from it. We're going to completely ignore them. So now they begin to formulate a plan, and their plan is pretty simple. They want to get a huge bank loan, buy as much gas as they can in bulk, and thus begin selling that gas door to door to customers directly, cutting out the gas stations completely. That way they can become the middleman, and then thus they can fully profit and exploit the situation. And this fits in with the decide phase of the OODA loop as well. Multiple options are considered when they come up with this plan. However, they are solely just tunnel vision with making money and greed, and any risk, legality, or practicality issues are completely thrown out the window and ignored. And that'll cause problems for them further down the line. So, for step 6, they made their countermeasures, and now they are seeing their countermeasures through. So, they then act on their plan, which is to go to a bank, get a loan, buy a bunch of gas in bulk, and thus begin selling that gas door to door. However, they are thus denied that bank loan, obviously because no bank is going to loan these people money to buy a bunch of gas and sell it. Banks give loans to businesses, and this plan is idiotic. So, not deterred by any roadblocks, they thus reorient, and they come up with another solution that is basically the same. Rather than getting money from the bank, they thus steal money from their friend D, so they steal a bunch of money from their friend D, who had money hidden in her apartment. They then go to a gas station, buy a bunch of gas that they store in trash cans, and thus attempt to sell it door to door out of their van. And thus this is the act phase in the OODA loop. Their plan is executed, but the execution is obviously reckless and unsafe. So, for step 7 of the process, they reoriented, they developed their countermeasures. We're going to buy a bunch of gas, buy it in bulk, sell it door to door. They begin seeing that through as they try to sell the gas door to door. And now they want to, step 7, confirm their results. So, when the gang evaluates their situation and their results after trying to sell gas door to door, it becomes clear that their plan has failed. Nobody wants to buy gas from them, from a group of strangers selling gas out of trash cans from a creepy van that they just pull up to your house in. They realize that the storage solution they came up with storing it in loose trash cans, is unsafe, and the operation pretty much collapses almost immediately. So, for step 8 of the problem-solving method, this is the final step of the process, and this is normally where the gang would either learn from their process and figure out what adjustments they can make for next time as to why their plan failed. However, because these people have big egos and they think everybody else is wrong and they're always right, no adjustments are made. They believe they did nothing wrong. No lessons are learned, and the gang quite literally just repeats the same behavior patterns that they always do because these people are selfish and terrible and they never learn from anything. However, while this does show the OODA loop and 8-step problem solving method process, it also shows and highlights the failure of not learning from your mistakes. So, our gang thus does not standardize or adjust their methods or processes that they made. So, in summary, we talked about the OODA loop and the 8-step problem-solving method process and how the gang utilized that, and also why this episode works well as a case study and how it shows structured failure. This is important because every step in this process exists for a reason. And however, if you run into issues like cognitive bias, overconfidence, and also a lack of research, it can really undermine your entire problem-solving method process. And thus, that is why this episode demonstrates that the structure alone doesn't always guarantee good decision-making processes. So, these are my resources. And this is my contact information. Once again, I am Cadet 3rd Class Villanueva. If there are any questions, I will take them now. If there are no further questions, then this concludes my brief. Thank you.